Welcome back to our live coverage of the Tour of Spain. We're up to stage 10 now. We stay in Cordoba, but I have to tell you the weather has turned against the peloton because it's raining quite heavily and conditions, to say the least, are a little bit slippery for the first long individual time trial of this year's race. I'm Phil Liggett, joined by Paul Sherwin. Now, anybody can come into that golden jersey tonight because there are so many riders, Paul, who can change it around, and we don't have a real time trial rider up there.
No, none of the riders in the top end of the GC at the moment are good time trialists. They'll have to ride to defend their position today, but there are one or two excellent time trialists in the course, and one man who's lying a fair way down in the overall classification is David Miller, the Scot. He won the opening time trial last year at the Vuelta a España. He finished second in the World Time Trial Championships last year, and I think he's got a very good chance of winning today. The big question mark, though, Phil, for me, is Santiago Botero. He's a long way down in the overall classification, and there's a rumour circulating that he might actually be holding back a little bit because he doesn't want to leave too much of his energy on the roads of the Vuelta a España because, let's not forget, the World Time Trial Championships is coming up, so it'll be interesting to see how he rides today.
Mind you, we could say the same for David Miller, of course. He was second in the world title time trial last year. I think David's got his eye on a high finish. Well, let's have a look at the overall classification now because it's 24 seconds.
Well, it just goes to show the form that Christian van der Velde has got towards the latter part of the season. Didn't make the selection for the Tour de France Team 4 US Postal Service and may well be looking to install himself as a big winner of the stage in the Grand Tour. This man would like to win a Grand Tour. Francesco Casagrande, leader of the Fassa Bortolo team. He's 11th overall at the start of this morning, a minute 45 back. He's not a great time trialist, but he's actually riding in the overall classification right now in a position where he's surrounded by other climbers like himself. So he could very well improve today, Phil.
Sitting in 10th place overall, a couple of small stage race wins under his belt this year. The Settimana Ciclistica has won, and in April he won the Tour of Trentin in Italy as well. So he's on form, he's got 3 wins. And would dearly like to be a little bit closer up. I think he's having to prove all of the time. He's not getting a bit long in the tooth now, Francesco. He's nearly 32 years of age. In fact, he is 32 years of age. That happened just 2 days ago, as now he sprints away looking for a good ride today.
Well, he's never been one of the great time trialists, and in fact it was in a time trial against Gilberto Simoni that he lost his lead in the Giro d'Italia, and here is Simoni right now. Simoni, for a man who is reputedly a very good climber, has an excellent position here for the time trial, Phil. You see he's got down very low in the middle of those handlebars. He's looking very compact right now. He's got a good pedalling style. Simoni, with a good ride today, could move himself up very much into the top 10. He's currently lying 12th overall at the start of the day, and he certainly looks as if he's on fire, and he's a kind of man who excels in these very dramatic conditions that we're experiencing today.
He does like slippery roads, and he's a very skillful man on a bike. He can really handle his bike in bad conditions. That can be worth seconds today in a time trial of this nature. And here's a man who's having to recover from a very poor time by the team on day 1 in the team time trial, where they lost 1.5 minutes to ONCE, and as a result of that he's still looking to pick up quite a bit of time. This is the 29-kilometre checkpoint we're looking at here now. Towler was getting into his rhythm just here, and he continued to pick up all the way to the line, which is at 36.5 kilometres. We're waiting for the arrival at this point now of Christian van der Velde, who is quicker than Towler by a scant 2 seconds at the 90 year. But what a good season he's having, as he seems to have all of the time. As Beloki now makes his start again, and still looking for a big time win in a stage race. He's run close in the Tour de France, and he's still looking for a big result. And I'm not so sure he's got the legs at this time of the year. We'll find out today, maybe.
Well, it's difficult after finishing second in the Tour de France to Lance Armstrong to keep the form to try and win a Grand Tour at the end of the season. Simoni getting out of the saddle every time he feels that his tempo is not as high as he's wanting it right here in the individual time trial. He still looks pretty good right now, but this is a very difficult course, and we've seen a lot of riders starting very quickly. Good to see that Christian van der Velde and David Miller have a joint fastest time at 9 kilometres into this event. And I think we may well cause the surprise there, because Christian van der Velde is an excellent time trialist, and once he gets those time checks coming through, Phil, I think that will be
that's incredible.
1/10 of a second slower than Christian van der Velde. That really is quite remarkable. Joseba Beloki, Phil, he knows how to ride a good time trial. It's his time trialing ability at the Tour de France that has managed to get him onto the podium on 3 separate occasions, twice in 3rd place and once up into 2nd place. So right now he too will be hoping to try and wipe away a fair proportion of that 1 minute 43 deficit he had at the start of today's stage.
So Beloki, to the tune of Manolo Sainz, shouting at him. He won't be given a moment's peace for the next 46 minutes of racing or so to keep him going. He's rocking and rolling a bit on this climb to try and keep the big gears going. And as you can hear, the rain is starting again out on the course. So they've got to be very careful on the way down at these very barren roads here. But that is an amazing result by David Miller and Christian van der Velde. They are locked together exactly the same time at 9, exactly the same time at 19 kilometres. We're now looking at Angel Casero at 19. He's behaving much better this year for Cofidis. Now to see Roberto Heras here. He knows he needs a good time trial. He doesn't want too good a time trial because I don't think at this stage of the Tour he wants that golden jersey.
Well, he really wants to keep himself in contention for the moment, and I think he'll save an awful lot down to the last week of this Tour. Fortunately for Roberto Heras, you see the rain has stopped, but actually out on the course, away from the city of Cordoba, it is still raining. So it is a difficult course for all of these riders to master right now.
And they still continue to come in. This is probably David Plata. You know, it's Perez, the man who nearly has these past 2 days, had a second. And I'm not sure whether he's cracked or whether Towler just went quicker. He seemed to pick it up at every time check and got better and better. And so he made a much slower start than a lot of the riders. And in fact, 47.15 is still good enough for 2nd place so far for Christian.
David Miller is going to do out on the course. And of course, for this man, Joseba Beloki, it's very important to ride well today. This man who is in the starting gate right now, Aitor González, a winner of a stage out on the open road, and maybe a man who could be wearing yellow tonight.
Well, that's what I think is a young team leader would like to be the case, and I'm not so sure yet whether that's going to be possible, but we'll see as Aitor González makes his start gently, like everybody. They've all got a lot of common sense today. There's a long way still to go in this year's Vuelta. Alexander Vinokurov. We have a sneaking suspicion we could then be looking at the man who will be taking the next golden jersey, but I might be wrong, of course. But I think that Vinokurov is on tremendous form. He won a stage of the Tour of Switzerland before he crashed out. There he is. Let's all wish him happy birthday, because he's 29 today. And what a lovely present it would be if he could get the golden jersey. He's been a pro since 1998, Alexander. We know him extremely well. We've sort of followed his career. We've been around the world with him as a young amateur when he used to race for Kazakhstan, and we met him on many occasions. He was speaking good English, but now he's riding for the German team. He seems to have improved his German and lost a little bit of his English.
Well, he's got a good chance, because 14 seconds is the difference between him and the man who leads the bike race at the moment, Óscar Sevilla. I would say Alexander Vinokurov is a much better time trialist than Óscar Sevilla. Sevilla had a hard time in the time trials at the recent Tour de France, but right now he is on form and he's leading the bike race, and it might well just give him the extra motivation that he needs to put in a very fine time trial performance. But Vinokurov, he realises he's got a very good opportunity here today to get the...
Meanwhile, back in the start house, final adjustment for the man in the golden jersey, Óscar Sevilla. Another important day in this young man's life. Last year he lost the jersey by the end of the day, and as a result lost the Vuelta España in Madrid a year ago. Not the time to tell him about that, because today he wants simply a good enough ride to keep him as a player in this race. I'm sure he will do that, whether he's in yellow. And personally, Paul, I don't think he'd be too disappointed if he does lose his lead. It's a question of the time gaps. That's what he'll worry about.
Well, I think he wants to go out and put in a good performance, Phil. It's an exceptionally important individual time trial for this man right now, because he knows if he rides well today, he'll keep the jersey. Of course, the technology that goes into developing the machines that these guys ride has also helped to improve him. He looks very strong right now. He's currently lying 4th place in the overall classification, 48 seconds down at the start of today, and he would like to put some time between himself and Óscar Sevilla.
Well, back to the finishing line here. Now remember that we've got all of the riders out on the road now. This is Fabian Jecker, who's sprinting through next to finish. He's also showing his form. He's steadily coming good. He was placed yesterday 2nd on the stage. He has a reasonably high overall position just now. As he now pushes on towards the line, this will keep him, probably improve his overall position. So Fabian Jecker of Switzerland, and the Portuguese team, MSS, in with 6th best time.
I think he'll be quite happy with his time trial performance, because this man has done the time trial performance of his life. Here is Roberto Heras right now in the finishing straight. He's still well up there, Phil. He's going to finish inside the top 5.
It's a very good ride. He was holding David Miller for the first couple of time checks. Miller's had an inspired finish, which has kept him on top of the leaderboard, but Heras is still finishing in a very high position here. Of course, his fight will go into the mountains, and he's still very much one of the top favourites to win this tour. He won't be too unhappy with that, as he concedes only 34 seconds thus far. 47.06 for the US postal man.
Finishing straight, and this will be the win.
Well, this is for the best time of the day, there's no doubt about that, and we'll know very shortly too. It's to be for the golden jersey, but here comes Aitor González, his second win in this year's tour, exactly 1 minute quicker than David Miller. Magnificent cheer for him. 45 minutes and 32 seconds for the 36 kilometres.
Absolutely brilliant ride by Aitor González, superbly motivated by the fact that he felt that this could be a two-pronged attack. Not only does he win the stage, but he's trying to take the golden jersey off his teammates' shoulders. We haven't seen very much of Alexander Vinokourov. I would have expected that Óscar Sevilla would have caught him right now, but Sevilla is still 3 kilometres to go to the finishing line.
So I don't think he can have done, but we haven't seen anything of Vinokourov. We've been switching around the 2 Kelme riders who've been dicing for the golden jersey. As the road opens up now for Óscar Sevilla, he's just over 1.5 miles from the line. His teammate is in with a time that no one will match here now. And it's up to this man. If he sprints, he might save the day to keep golden jersey on his shoulders. I'm not sure he even wants to do that. He might want to take some of the pressure away. That's what he said earlier. Now, Paul, what's he got to do to keep his jersey?
He has to finish inside of 46 minutes and 13 seconds. The time to beat for the stage victory is 45.32. He was not going to do that at all, but to keep the golden jersey on his shoulders, he needs to finish inside of 46.13. At the last time check, Phil, he was 4 seconds inside of that. So it's just what we have to do right now is wait and see how he survives over these last few kilometres.
Oh, there's Vinokourov. Vinokourov just gone around the corner there. So that's an inspiration for him, and it might keep him in gold, because if he keeps aiming at Alexander, then he might just hold his race lead by 1 or 2 seconds. What a good finish this is to the time trial now, and I think that'll be 2 kilometres to go.
Yeah, that's the 2 kilometre to go banner. It should take him around about 2 minutes and 30 seconds at speeds like this. It's a bit technical coming into the last kilometre or so. Vinokourov has actually resisted fairly well, because he lost an awful lot of his time in the first 10 kilometres, but he seems to have improved over the last part of the course.
2 minute time gap at the start. It is now about 20 metres, and he is so interested in picking him up, he's racing him down here.
Well, this might just be the action he needs to keep the golden jersey on his shoulders. Vinokourov is trying to ride to stay in the top 5 overall in this year's Tour of Spain right now, and this carrot in front of Óscar Sevilla just may well have given him the extra seconds he needed. There's the time to beat on the finish line, 45.32. He's not going to beat that at all, but if he gets onto the line in a time inside of 46 minutes and 13 seconds, he will hold onto his jersey. There is the Flamme Rouge, the red kite, 1,000 metres to go now for Óscar Sevilla, 44.45. It is going to be desperately close, Phil, and he may well have pulled off the coup of his career.
Well, it's a wonderful piece of riding by Óscar Sevilla, and goodness knows what's happened to Alexander Vinokourov today on his 29th birthday, because he can turn in a very good time trial when he wants to, but it wasn't to be today. Caught for 2 minutes by the race leader. Remember, the time we are interested in, or I think Oscar's probably interested in, is 46 minutes and 13 seconds. He must do that time, or better, to keep the overall lead. He's inside the last 800 metres. The clock is running, and it's inside a minute.
Well, it's going to be unbelievable. I think he may well have just been able to do that. He's improved over the last few kilometres. It will all go down to the last few seconds. Right now, he's inside of the finishing straight. He's going to have to pick it up. He's losing a bit of time around these corners right now, but he has now gone into second on the stage. But that's not what's important for Óscar Sevilla. What is more important right now is getting to the line inside of 46.13. And you know what, Phil? He's absolutely going to do it.
It's going to be the sprint of his life, and he's going to fight it for his teammate for that goal. golden jersey. He knows, and I think he's done it, and it can only have been the attraction of Alexander Vinokurov. He's got to beat 46.13 to stay the golden boy of this race. This is a superb finish. What a turnaround in a year for Óscar Sevilla, who lost his golden jersey in the Tour a year ago. He holds it by a second, by 1 second.
Cannot believe it. That is look at the face on him there as he comes across the line. 46.12. He has done it. It's absolutely remarkable. The comeback he made over the last 10 kilometres. He was losing that jersey to his teammate by about 4 seconds at one stage, and there is confirmation of his second position there. Aitor González is the winner, but Óscar Sevilla, in my calculations, keeps onto that jersey by seconds ahead of Sevilla. David Miller there in third place, Beloki in fourth, a minute and 1 second behind, and I think that cheer indicating that the race lead has stayed on the shoulders of Óscar Sevilla. But here's the stage winner.
There he is, Aitor González. He won stage 8 at Ubrique. He's now back on the winner's rostrum here 2 days later. Beloki is in the ascendancy as well, but 2 minutes back in fourth, and in fifth place after his good time trial today is the Basque. And we start this 15th day without Fernando Escartin, Giovanni Lombardi, Juan Manuel Gurate and Ludovic Ogier. All four of them victims of that big pile-up yesterday, haven't started the race today. It's our big rendezvous, of course, with the Angliru. We still have that 1 second margin between teammates. It's been like that for 5 days. I think we can safely say, though, that it will change today. Welcome back. I'm Phil Liggett, of course, along with Paul Sherwin and Bob Roll. Hi again, guys. Paul, let's start first with Óscar Sevilla. Very nervous man, I would think.
Yeah, Phil, I think everybody's nervous at the start of a big mountain stage like the one we're facing today, and all of the riders wondering whether or not they've got the right gear ratios for this very difficult climb. But Óscar Sevilla does start the race as the leader, albeit with a 1 second advantage over his own teammate. He's only really been put into difficulty once so far in this year's Vuelta a España, and that was by Roberto Heras. Now, last time the climb came here, Roberto Heras, in fact, beat Óscar Sevilla by 4.5 minutes. But on that occasion, Heras was in the jersey. It's completely different today.
It is, and Heras is the man who's climbed that Angliru the fastest over the years. He'll need to do that again today, Bob, if he wants the race lead.
Yes, absolutely. Like you said, he has climbed up the hill faster than anybody in history. They've only done it twice before. Jose Maria Jimenez won the first time, and Roberto Heras had the jersey and did a great climb the last time they went up. That stage was won by Gilberto Simone. On the Pradera climb in this Vuelta a España, he took a lot of time out of Óscar Sevilla, and he's going to need to use this hill as much as he can to get more time back, because Sevilla has proven to be a much faster time trialist. So Heras needs the Angliru and the Covatia to come in a couple of days on stage 18 to really take as much time as possible out of Sevilla to get the jersey. So he has a bit of a cushion before they get to the last time trial in Madrid.
All right, well, it's not just all about the final hill today, and Paul will tell us about the route in a moment. We'll now have a look at the overall classification as it was at the start of the day. He'd say it is not an absolutely flat course, to say the least, on the way to the big mountain. Just take us through it, Paul.
Well, you're right, Phil. The race has been here. This is the third time we've actually come to Angliru, and this is the hardest approach that the race has ever had, and it's made a lot more difficult by the fact that there are two very difficult first category climbs before we get there. It's 170 kilometres of racing to the finishing line, but look at this. This is what the profile looks like. A first category climb at 80 kilometres, a first category at 154, but it's a final climb up to the finish that will make all of the decisions.
And we're looking now at the two survivors, I suppose we could call them, of a breakaway of some 24 riders. Although the remnant of the break is still clear of the peloton, none of the riders ahead of the main field today are affecting the destiny yet of the race leaders' golden jersey. This is Pereiro at the back here, 11th in this year's Tour of Italy, and he's got Fletcher with him on the Ibernesto. No wins for him. And Pereiro here and Fletcher have just got rid of Iker Flores, who fell on the descent of the Puerto Maravillo and has since been swept up by 14 chasers, the remnants of the 24 escapers. So there's a group of 15, and then the peloton And I must say, Paul, we've seen a tremendous display of strength by Kelme today, despite the fact that on the way up the Marabio, they got rid of their strong man, or was the strong.
He was hoping about the time trial, but I think that may well go out of the window. But the rest of the team, Phil, are superbly solid. This is the situation on the road at the moment. The two leaders have a 2-minute 8-second advantage over the group in the middle, and then it's a further 4 minutes and 54 seconds back to the main field. The main field, the last time we saw them, had turned off just a little bit. I think really because they realise the battle is not to try and catch the guys in front at the moment, because none of these leaders up the road are in any way at all dangerous to the overall classification. The man that Óscar Sevilla is more worried about is Roberto Heras, and he's having a fairly armchair ride for the moment, but we've still got 3 big climbs to come. A second category climb in about 10 kilometres time, then another first category climb, albeit just 5 kilometres in length, but the showdown will come down on the 45-minute ascent of Le Angliru.
Well, the feared bad weather yet to hit us, I'm delighted to say, and so are the riders. It is chilly, but it's not bad. Patera looks as though he's got himself back up here on the way down, so that means that the yellow jersey, or the golden jersey as called in the Vuelta, has got all of his men around him, with one exception who's in the breakaway, and that's Manzano, who's out there in the front doing absolutely nothing on the tail of the...
And that was the team of the man who leads the King of the Mountains competition, Roberto Simoni, and the last man to win here at the Alto de Angliru. And this is where the riders have got to so far. It's 176.7 kilometres today's stage. They've already gone over the Marabio, they've gone over the Tenebredo, and now they're on the approach finally to the Alto de Cordal, at 43 kilometres to go to the finish. The gap, 2:49, these two men have over the chasing group of 15. 7 minutes, 6.5 minutes to the main peloton. Bob, I think they're going to get caught before the end. How much time do you think they need? If
they're not going to get that, obviously. So I do believe you're right.
Bob, we're talking about two good guys here, not you and Paul, you know.
It's just too long and too hard, and I think that the group on the road behind these riders, only 2 minutes 45 seconds down or so, have one of the riders in there who's been conserving his energy. We'll see who it is when we get to the next 2 climbs, but I think a rider from that group will win the stage, and it'll be a huge battle, though, for GC in the peloton behind. Simoni's team has come to the front. Roberto Simoni needs this race to be very hard. He needs to have a hard tempo as a launch pad to get up the hill. He's in 14th place overall. He might not be thinking about a high GC placing. I know he'd like to improve on that, but he might be thinking about trying to win the stage. In order to do that, he needs to close the gap way down to the second group on the road. That's about 4 minutes ahead wet, and it's going to be a dangerous descent before they ever get to the Angliru. So everyone will want to be at the front of the next Category 1 climb, so that'll make a very fast, very competitive climb. The thing is you can go down and then start the Angliru, and there's the Saeco train, and they're really going hard now. They're pedaling quite hard, so Simoni has obviously put his men on the front there. He must be feeling good, and the Kelme guys will now be able to rest a little bit. It's going to be a very competitive stage, and the Cordal might prove to be the pivotal moment in this race before we even get to the final climb.
Well, it was last time they came in '99, because that's where there were several crashes on the descent, because the race was held in weather conditions very similar to this right now. Obviously, Roberto Simoni wants to get himself this stage. He likes to win at the top of big mountains, and this was really the thing that Kelme needed to try and spur up the pacemaking at the front end of the main field. And just a quick look at the history of the Angliru. In fact, it was only discovered back in 1998, and in those days it used to be a cattle track in the middle of Asturias, used by the farmers to take their cows up during the summer months, and it was only recently paved and decided by the race organisation to adopt it for a mountaintop finish. It really is a beast of a climb, Phil, that a lot of riders are very worried about because of the fact that it has such steep gradients that we very rarely see at this level of the sport in the Grand Tours.
Now looking at the new style frame here from Team Telecom. It's a Pinarello bike that Telecom ride. Now, as we go to break this time, here comes the Honda trivia question for you. Place, and there are now 3 men out front.
Well, there's almost 1 man out front and 2 chasers, because Osa is going down this mountain like a man possessed right now, Bob, and his teammate Fletcher won't be chasing that hard at all, I shouldn't think, because it will give him an advantage of getting to the bottom of the climb in first position. It is a very sketchy descent, this, though, isn't it, because the surface is not good. It's slightly broken up in parts, and the fact that there's been a few rainstorms this afternoon would indicate that when we go into some of the shaded parts, then certainly the road is still going to be damp. Aitor Osa was 3rd over the top of the Alto de Caudal, but he was only a fraction of a second behind the two leaders, and immediately he made the junction fill, he attacked on the descent.
And we never saw him at all, because they've been picking off the remnants of that breakaway one by one. There's about 38 riders now in the main field, and we haven't noticed any of the top 15 riders overall missing the move yet, but certainly it'll be every man for himself on the big climb just ahead. The dinner plates will be forgotten, and you'll be on the inside ring, you'll be on the side servers, I think, because we're looking at chain ring sizes of 30, 32.
There's a problem here. This is the big problem today with the fact that a lot of teams and a lot of riders have changed the triple chain rings on the front. It also means putting a complete different sprocket on the back, doesn't it, Bob? And the jockeys have to be changed too.
Yes, everything has to be changed in the whole drivetrain. Also your technique for shifting, because you have three choices in the front, so it makes it very difficult. Here we're going to see a replay. Hopefully we can see what happened. It looks like the chain is jammed up there on the back sprockets, and that's what's going to happen when you change everything in the drivetrain and the riders aren't used to it, or perhaps they don't get it exactly right. Plus the cable stretch throughout the day, and the shifting just goes straight into the garbage can. Aitor Osa is letting all the chickens out of the coop in the meantime at the front of this bicycle race. He bridged up to the two leaders just before the top of the climb and then immediately dropped him on the descent. I think when we get back down to the bottom of this valley and the Angliru climb, we'll see Osa by himself, or at least with Fletcher and Pidietto climbing at speed the Angliru. Now Osa has been sitting in the second group, not doing any work, while he was not obliged to because his teammate was up
crash,
the road.
Bob, look at this. What looks very much as if one of the riders has gone down there from Fassa Bortolo, and I think
Casagrande, that?
No, it wasn't Casagrande.
Well, if it's not, it's Pataku.
No, in fact, it looks very much like Tadej Vlajevic who's gone down there, but this is a terrible crash right down here. One or two riders in the gutter at the side of the road here.
It might be Guido Trentin from Cofidis. Let's hope it's not. He's in 8th place overall. No. Number 59.
No, it is. You're absolutely right, Bob. That is Trentin has gone down, and he is a high finisher or a high rider.
You see how the surface of the road there is just a little bit damp. This is what Bob and I were expecting to happen right now. And this is the man who at the start of the day was 8th in the overall classification.
Yeah, what a shame. Trentin has gone down there, so this must have been pretty near the sharp end of that main field. And we've got one of the Benesto riders over there too, who is looking a little bit stunned at the moment. And
That's Pablo Lastras, who went down the winner of 2 stages of the Vuelta a España. He's had very unfortunate luck throughout his complete career right now. He seems to be okay. He doesn't seem to be injured. Just, in fact, it looked as if he was holding his shoulder there, but he was talking to the team car, the team management, to say that he's destroyed his bike probably, and he needs a new machine to come forward.
So Pablo Lastras, 15th overall, has gone down as well, and we've got to watch out for many riders coming through here.
Well, this is just exactly when the crash happened. That looks like Santos Gonzalez just going through there from Aqua Saponi. He was able to avoid it, but these guys are going off this mountain right now and not saving anything at all. They realise how important it is. You can see that's Tadej Vlajevic from Fassa Bortolo. Initially, it looked as if it was number 81 there, and that is Francesco
81,
Casagrande.
Looked at his face.
Fortunately, Casagrande is still up and riding. It looks as if there was another Cofidis rider there as well.
Attacking rider earlier, he's the other man down there. He was really doing well, and now he's way behind, but he looked okay as he pulled his bike back out of the ditch.
Look at the surface of the road here, Phil. It looks as if there's been a slight shower in the last few moments as well, because that road looks very slick and slippery for the moment, and there are huge gaps in that field right now. And as we said, exactly the same as back in 1999, there were an awful lot of crashes on this descent, and in fact it was here in 1999 that Abraham Alano went down in one of those crashes and actually broke one of his ribs, as did Fernando Escar.
We're back with the pacemakers now in today's stage as they start the climb of the Langaroo. Flecker and Sousa a little bit behind at the moment. Moments ago this happened. David Miller looks as though he's out of the Tour of Spain, following in the wheel tracks of 8th place teammate Trentin. 9th place Miller looks here as though he will not be going on. Well, that's a sad sight.
It certainly is. A lot of riders taking huge risks there right now, and there really has been a devastating descent this for all of the riders. Meanwhile, we go back to Aitor Osa. He's the lone leader of the Vuelta a España today on stage 15, and he has a small advantage over the two chasers, Fletcher and Pereira, who I think now, Phil, has put up the white flag, but it's absolute chaos on this road right now.
Osa flying up this climb right now. He made a great move. He was sitting on during the breakaway while Fletcher and Perrier were up the road really making a hard tempo. One of his teammates, Fletcher, was in that break, so he didn't have to do any work as they chased, and so that gave him a chance to rest. And when they got up to the top of the Cordal, he rocket shipped across to the breakaway. He's dropped them now. Here is the front group from the peloton. Heras sitting comfortably there, and it looks like Sevilla has regained a little bit of his legs. He's moved up into third position with his two teammates in the front. Osa, in the meantime, is at the front of the bike race flying up the road. Looks like David Miller's been able to get back up on his bicycle, and he's going to try to struggle on to the finish line. Of course, he'll lose out on his top 10 placing on GC. It was a hard crash. It didn't look like anything was broken. His legs and elbows and arms, hips were all shredded, but he's been able to get back up on his bike. That's a good sign. He wants to finish this. It's a very honorable stage to finish, and so it's a great day of bike racing already, and we've just gotten to the bottom.
Well, our trees are not giving us a very happy approach to the top of the mountain, but there gives you some idea in this graphic here of the slope as we start at the bottom. 6 kilometre climb right to the top, 23.6%. It really bites at the midway point when it kicks over that ridge of the mountain. Then it levels to a mere 14.5% as it makes its way up to the line. But what we've noticed now is in this group of 22 riders, one or two of the stars forced out by their crashes on the way down. Just at the Longaroo now, still Aitor Osa is up at the front on the left of our picture, but look at this now. Francesco Casagrande is the man now who is starting to hurt the field. He's pushed the Kelme riders out of the way. He's being marked by Aitor González, but the yellow jersey, or the golden jersey, is not feeling so good, I don't think. He's slotted in behind Gilberto Simoni.
Well, Osa now has an advantage of 49 seconds here, and you get an idea to see just how difficult this climb is. We're getting to the very steep part of the climb right now. Francesco Casagrande has said, well, I don't want to take the pacemaking of Kelme anymore. I shall go to the front and do it all myself. You know what? The one man who is looking very good here right now is Aitor González, second in the overall classification, 1 second off the lead, and the man who is suffering to hold on to that lead is Óscar Sevilla.
Well, as we continue the climb of this mountain, we've yet to kick into the big steep section, believe it or not, and news reaching us that at the top of the climb, visibility is now down to 10 metres, and you can see from this shot, as we look towards the summit, just how low the cloud is. I'm trying to also say, look at this magnificent crowd here on this mountain, and this is why the organisation has brought the race here. 37 seconds, he continues to lose ground as they now get wiped out. This is Flecker being picked up now by the relentless pace of Aitor González.
Well, Aitor González has decided to set the tempo himself right now. The team that has done a superb job of being swept away as Aitor González assumes responsibility at the front end of this bike race. There, coming up there is Roberto Heras now into second position. There, a little bit further back, is Joseba Beloki. Francesco Casagrande taking up fourth position right now, but the yellow jersey, Phil, is around about 10 metres off the back of this group. He's being left behind by the tempo of his own teammate.
Well, this fellow González, look at his face. He is looking so good at the moment. Heras is marked González. He's made the right move here, and they've got a little bit of a gap now. They've started to crack the rest of the field. Casagrande also in trouble. This is now the scrabble for the wheels, and that is a superb pedalling style, rather reminiscent of one Lance Armstrong by González.
Well, Phil, I only hope that the helicopter can stay here, because we are in for a huge battle here right now. Aitor González, look at the steepness in this corner right now. The motorbike is having to move slightly further forward because of the steepness in these corners, which is close to 25%. González is still setting the tempo. Heras is waiting for a few moments. This, in fact, was the move that went a little while ago. This is Sousa. He was in the leading break of 24 riders early this morning. He will move high up in the overall standings as long as he can still get to the finish, because let's not forget, in the past, riders have lost 5 and 6 minutes on this final climb of the day. Aitor Osa from ibernesto.com still leads the bike race, but I would say not by very much more than 35 seconds.
What a magnificent crowd, Bob, and look at the conditions. They cheer the Tour of Spain up here now. The cool Mr. Cool himself, Aitor González, could be changing that white for the golden jersey. There is the erstwhile winner of this race. Angliru has always done pretty well on this climb, but there is the golden jersey, and this climb is hurting Óscar Sevilla. We thought he was in trouble on the previous climb. We know he's in trouble right now.
Well, he really has been put under a lot of difficulty. Let's not forget, last time the bike race came here, he lost 4.5 minutes to Roberto Heras. But the man who is actually setting the race up perfectly for himself is number 125. Roberto Heras knows that, and knows that he needs to get big time right now. One of the perfect pedalling actions that this man has developed over the years, and he's going clear right now. Look at the steepness in the corners. He's riding away from the man who is in second place in the overall classification, while the yellow jersey, number 121, is having a very tough time.
Well, this is a sad sight if you're in the Kelme squad. This rider now, Roberto Heras, is setting off in pursuit of gold because he needs a minute and 41 seconds at the summit if he's going to take the race lead off the new leader on the road, Aitor González. And he's looking like he's very, very strong. And those motorbikes really should be out of the way now.
Well, they can't get him out of the way. The road is so narrow and it's absolutely blocked by the spectators who've turned up here. There is Aitor Osa. Now Roberto Heras is in first place out on the road right now. Bob, this is a great climb by the US Postal rider.
We're looking at a true angel of the mountain in full flight, and he's being perfectly beatified by this climb. Roberto Heras is flying up the hill now. He's put Sevilla way back down the road, and Aitor González is having a hard time matching him. Heras is flying up the mountain now, and this is exactly what he needs to do. He needs to take back a minute and 41 seconds on Aitor González. He looks to be not pedaling nearly as well. Look at Heras go flying up this mountain. He is the preeminent climber in the world today, and he wants to show everybody in Spain just exactly what he's made out of. He is really cruising. He's got a long ways to go. He's got 4 or 5 kilometers, and he's going to take huge time out of Sevilla. We'll just have to see if Aitor González can match any of this grace that he is applying to the pedals right now.
Well, this great little climber started the day a minute and 42 seconds behind the two Kelme boys. González tried to take him apart. Here's Beloki. And he also is trying to get something out of this now because he's lying 5th overall in the race. We're looking for Iban Mayo. We haven't seen him since all of a sudden these boys started attacking one another.
Well, Beloki now is trying to pull himself back into this bike race that looks as if it might be Angliru, but is absolute chaos here on the Angliru. There's no confusion at all about who's leading the bike race right now. Roberto Heras, an absolutely superb style. And just to remind ourselves, the US Postal Service this morning decided to opt for a triple chainring on their bicycles, a 53 on the outside, but more importantly, 39 and 30 on the inside with a 25-tooth sprocket. And you can see that he's stretching his advantage now. It's 20 seconds over Beloki and Aitor González, but González will not even try to pull him back right now, Bob, because he knows he can win it back in the time trial. We mustn't forget either that the man who's ridden up this climb the fastest in history is none other than Roberto Heras. That was back in 2000 when he rode up this climb in a time of 42 minutes and 15 seconds.
Well, he seems to be about taking 1 second every 10 pedal strokes, and so after many thousands of pedal strokes by the top of this mountain, that added up to quite a bit. Aitor González needs to limit his losses all the way to the line, and Roberto Heras needs to stretch it out as far as he's going. That attack was as clean and pure as a bolt of lightning and has launched him up this mountain. He was led out by Christian van der Velde for the U.S. Postal Team, and look down the mountain. Here is Sevilla really having a hard day today. He's carried this jersey, but this morning he's felt the full weight of it, and the Kelme team as well, falling apart all over the slopes of this mountain. 5 kilometers to go to the finish.
So he's made his attack about 6.5 kilometers from the summit, and now he's trying to drag out a minute and 3/4 to get the golden jersey. He's got to make his move on this climb. As I said earlier, he needs to attack it early enough to get the big time gaps, because this race won't always be in his favour. There's one more big mountain top finish, which people say is a real toughie like this one, and then advantage might swing back to Aitor González. So González today might just try to limit his losses. The golden jersey, though, is getting himself in all sorts of trouble with Klaus Moeller there. And this looks like Manzano just peeping in below our picture. But this rider, he's got to just steady himself, not panic, and hope that as the mountain nears the top, he can recover and regain a little bit of lost time. But the clock is running on that 5 kilometers banner, and already with still 3 miles to climb, he's a minute down.
Well, you can lose an awful lot of time on the slopes of this mountain, and I think the record holder for losing time is Angel Casero, who lost himself 4 minutes in 3 kilometres. This is superb pedalling style of this man, and I have to say once again, Johan Brunel has been a master tactician. The team are obviously not great at the Vuelta a España, but they haven't needed to be. They've waited for this moment. They've looked after Roberto Heras whenever need be, and right now he is coming out of the pack and trying to stamp his authority on this bike race. The big advantage right now, though, for Aitor González, who is not a great climber, he is a good time trialist, and he can follow the pacemaking set by another very good time trialist, Joseba Beloki. These two men may well just limit their losses today and keep themselves in contact.
It's quite possible that Aitor González and Joseba Beloki will complete the top 3 in this race by the summit of this climb overall. Beloki knows it too. He knows he's got to find 2 minutes off Óscar Sevilla. He's not shaken González, who'll always stay above him while he hangs in second place on this tandem as they go up the mountain. 2 Spanish riders again in the thick of it.
Well, in fact, Joseba Beloki could very well be climbing himself up into a podium position today. He finished second overall in the Tour de France. The last time a man finished on the podium in the Tour de France and the Vuelta a España was back in 1991, and that was Tony Romiger, who finished first in the Vuelta and then second in the Tour de France. But González looks to me as if he was about to crack.
Well, he's taken himself to the limit. If he does crack, he's got himself to blame for that massive acceleration which blew the leaders apart. 33 seconds is now the gap over these two chasing Heras, and there he goes. As Paula said, he's about to crack, and he's cracked, and now Beloki is off in pursuit of Heras, and if Beloki gets 2 minutes over Aitor González, then we're going to have a head-to-head between Beloki and Heras as this race goes forward.
Bob, the amazing thing about a climb like this is if you do go too hard and you do pop on this climb, you use massive time.
Oh, you lose so much time because you're loaded up with lactic acid. You can barely pedal, and it's so steep and so difficult that you just can't even barely move up the mountain. While in the meantime, you can see how well Beloki's going. I'm surprised to see that. But look at Roberto Heras. He's now under the 4Ks to go banner, and he is not slowing down at all. He keeps on increasing his lead. Beloki's been able to drop Aitor González. We'll have to see the progress of Sevilla. It looked as if Sevilla was starting to claw his way back again a little bit, starting to get a little bit of momentum. In the orange jersey back there, I think that would be Iban Mayo from the Euskaltel team. And there's Aitor Osa. He's still trying to stay on the wheel of Sevilla, who's clawing his way back slowly. There's a small group just in front of him. If he can stay with those guys, he can continue to limit his losses, and we'll have to see what happens to Aitor González, who made the acceleration that opened this race up and that allowed Heras to have a real springboard, and now Heras is flying up the road, being chased by Beloki. Now it's 40 seconds. He's going ahead all the time. Each pedal stroke, he increases his lead a little bit. González trying to fight back to the wheel of Beloki now.
Well, Aitor González has not panicked at all. You know, he felt himself going into the red zone a little bit there. He didn't want to stay on the wheel of Joseba Beloki. He allowed him to ride further forward. He is actually dosing his effort, I think, quite perfectly here right now, Phil. He started the day with a minute and 41 seconds advantage over Roberto Heras, and he knows he's probably got a beating of him by around about a minute and a half in the final time trial. There's no need to panic for the moment. There's no need to cause yourself so much distress that you lose big time. It's about a minute and 20 seconds back to Óscar Sevilla. He is losing big time, but again, he has to dig deep into his courage to try and stay in contact. He's led this bike race for an awful long time. He's a minute 25 down on Roberto Heras right now, and at the start of the day, he led Heras by 1:42.
Yes, so he is now 17 seconds away from losing his position to Heras, and that would mean it would be González, Heras, and then Sevilla in the overall classification. But I think it'll change even more than that before the top, as we still watch the riders here on the move. We're just looking now at the rider from Euskaltel Euskadi, López de Muñán. He's had a very good climb so far, and he's coming up here at the breakaway. What's left of it has been spread all over the mountain. Mayo, González, Beloki is the order they're saying, but this isn't Mayo here. This is actually López de Muñán who is coming up.
I believe that's Iban Mayo coming across
Mayo?
to González, and he is in 4th place overall, same time as Beloki, trying to get back a little bit of a slippage of gears there for Heras. Now that will give you a lot of trouble when you're climbing flat out and your bike starts to fall apart. That's the last thing you want.
Francesco Casagrande, the leader of Fas Bortolo, he was looking to get himself a good win at the summit of this mountain pass this afternoon. And one man who is notable by his absence is Gilberto Simoni, the man who won here back in the year 2000. I think that is Simoni just around the corner there, unless that is still Iban Mayo. But Francesco Casagrande is having a hard time. He went to the front at the early part of this climb, but nobody at all was able to resist the acceleration which came from this man, Roberto Heras. 2:21, the leader of the US Postal Service, third at the start of today, and right now looking to try and win the Vuelta a España for the second time.
And this half-hour commercial free brought to you by Lincoln, as we're looking at the leader now on the climb, Roberto Heras. In fact, for me, Casagrande's been a slow starter today, but he's warming to the situation because he is beginning to cut into the riders ahead of him. That is the order, in reverse order, if you like, because Casagrande's coming up on Mayo there. This is Aitor González, and Beloki is just in front, and then we could go right to the leader, and then we would find Heras. Beloki is having an inspired day here, and he's now working his way back into this race.
Well, sensible riding by him as well over these last 10 days, but look at the time gap between them. Heras is leading Beloki by 57 seconds. Roberto Heras has done a very good job over the first 14 days of this bike race. He's sat in the pack, he's come out and produced the efforts when he's needed to. His teammates have been there when they've needed to be, although they haven't been as fantastic and dominant as they were in the Tour de France when they defended Lance Armstrong's title there for the 4th year in succession. But Roberto Heras right now doesn't need any teammates. He's just got to ride up this mountain as hard as possible. You know, he was absolutely superb in the month of June. He won himself the Tour of Catalonia, but when it came to the Tour de France, he did everything for Lance Armstrong. The reason he's come here right now is to confirm that his win a couple of years ago was certainly no fluke.
Well, as we see the remnants of the leaderboard here now come round these steep corners, Heras goes under 3 kilometres to go. Still a massive crowd as we're starting to get into this cloud bank, which is reducing visibility down to around about 10 metres. We're trying to keep getting the team. This is the neutral service car trying to get through here.
This is US Postal. In fact, that'll be Johan Brunel in the team car there. He's panicking, itching to get forward to his man at the front of the bike race, but it is so difficult to do on roads as narrow as this. There is Iban Mayo, number 78 there. He wears the orange jersey at Euskaltel Euskadi. Francesco Casagrande, but what a great performance really by the man just in front of the US Postal team car here, Aitor González, second overall at the start of the day, and he's losing that position right now, but he hasn't yet lost it to the man who was first on the road, Roberto Heras.
And the clock counting again on the previous kilometre, 3 kilometres to go as we're heading up towards that 3 kilometre banner now, and this is the gap to Beloki as USP gets through to service Heras. The gap is big enough for the race referees to say go forward, and this is why Heras has got 1 minute and 5 seconds at 3 kilometres over Beloki.
Well, that's a big gap over there, over Joseba Beloki. Beloki really is not a great climber on his own. He's riding a tempo like a time trialist right now. The most important time check, though, Phil, really, as we look at Beloki, who was 5th at the start of the day, is the time difference between Roberto Heras and Aitor González. They were separated this morning by 1 minute 41, and if Heras finishes in 1 minute 42 at the end of this mountaintop finish, he will be the new golden jersey. This man, though, Joseba Beloki, is doing a great ride, but we're now on the very steep part of the climb. We are looking at gradients of 18% right now, which is almost unheard of. You can see how Roberto Heras is struggling to try and get as much time as possible. This is his terrain. This is the terrain where he as a climber can excess. 1 minute and 50 seconds is the time to the yellow jersey there, the man who started the day in gold, Óscar Sevilla. So he has disappeared from the top of the leaderboard right now, and it is going to be a decision between Roberto Heras and Aitor González at the end of the day.
Which way is your money going, Bob?
I think the stage is going to go to Heras, obviously. I think the jersey will stay on the shoulders of Aitor González, though. And there's Heras. He's struggling a little bit at this point. He's got about 2.5 Ks to go. It's only 43 seconds down to Beloki's group there. He needs a bit more time, I think. And Sevilla is further down the road. They're saying it's 1:07 right now, but I think it's gone up to a little bit more than that. Roberto Heras, he's a very reserved. He's a modest man. He's shy. He's like almost a recluse. But when he he lets his legs do the talking, he goes flying up the mountain, and he turns into an entirely different person. He's attacking, he's aggressive, he's impetuous on the climbs, and then we're going to see how fast he can get up this mountain, and at what speed. There's Aitor González, it looks like still struggling to try to limit his damages to that man, Roberto Heras. Lots of fans out on the road. They're going wild, and they're seeing a real exploit of climbing prowess by this man, probably the best climber in the world today.
Well, he needs to be. He's just over 17% on the climb as he is just at this minute. He's sitting in the saddle because, frankly, he cannot get out of the saddle on gradient at this level. The chances are he'd lift his front wheel off the road and tip off his bike.
This is a very difficult part of the climb here. It's just over 17%. It kicks up for a fraction at 23%, but the average gradient at this part is 17. As he gets a little closer to the summit, Phil, it will level off to 12.5%. Thank you very much. But this is what this climb is all about. This is a cattle track. As we look here, some of the guys are slightly over geared, which is why they're zigzagging over the road at the moment. Just a reminder of the gear that Roberto Heras is using at the moment with a 1 minute advantage over Joseba Beloki. He's using a 30-tooth inside chainring with a 25-tooth sprocket at the back. That is what you have on a mountain bike.
Well, here comes Beloki, and he's inching his way closer to Roberto Heras. He's knocked off 5 seconds in this kilometre, and he looks to be moving that little bit better than Heras right now, and he could well be fighting his way back into this race for a victory at the summit.
Well, it really is a whole question of technique and tactics at the moment, because all of the teams were trying to decide what kind of gear ratios to use. ONCE decided to only use 2 chain rings on their bikes, and on Joseba Beloki should have a 39-tooth chainring on the inside and a 29-tooth sprocket at the back, Bob.
Well, it looks like he's using every inch of that small gear, and this is an incredible spectacle. I think the weather has made things even more dramatic. It caused some riders to come off on the descent. Miller and Trentin, who were both in the top 10 on GC. The other riders are fighting it out. We haven't seen Óscar Sevilla for a while. It looks like Aitor González is just clawing his way back up to Beloki there, and these 2 riders will be able to cooperate to the finish line. We'll see just how well Heras is going. Here he is at the front of the race. He's going quite well. He's dancing on the pedals. He's got a couple of kilometers left to do. We'll see how much time he can get. It's 1 minute over Beloki, who's down the road. If it's going to increase now, it's because he's on a more gradual slope, and the other riders are still on the very, very steep part of this climb.
A bitter climb for these riders here. He's taking the wide berth on the road to try and avoid the steepness, but there's a massive crowd despite the weather at the top of this mountain pass. We're going back to the golden jersey, who is still in desperate trouble here as the mountain kicks in at the steepest point. Óscar Sevilla is still in trouble. He conceded 7 seconds on this climb once, as he now continues a little bit way down the mountain. He's lost his race lead for sure today, but it's a question of whether Aitor González gets it or Roberto Heras. Heras is desperately close to taking the golden jersey. The question we'll all have to ask then is if the team is up to keeping him in it.
Well, that's going to be the difficult thing right now. He's inside of 2 kilometres to go. The man who is second on the road right now, Joseba Beloki, the man who is hoping to be in the golden jersey tonight, has disappeared slightly because this is Francesco Casagrande riding himself back into the bike race. He is a great bike rider over the past. He's always tried to get himself high up in the 3:57 down, and he could find himself climbing into the top 5 because a lot of riders are absolutely crumbling over the last 5 kilometres of this stage.
Casagrande without a contract at the end of the year, and he's trying to sign with some of the Spanish teams, actually, so I'm sure he'd love to impress them, and today is a day to impress the whole world.
Well, he looks good as we go around this little steep bend. Not long ago, Heras went round it. That's Beloki in front. Casagrande now looking for the effort that will catch up with Joseba Beloki. That'll be 2 kilometres from the summit they're passing under right now, and there's nothing between these. 1:15 now is the gap, so in fact Heras has nudged out another 10 seconds over Beloki.
That's going to be enough right now, because we need to count the time back to Aitor González, 1:41. He's on the slightly easier part of the course, and I hate to say that a climb is easy because this is not an easy climb. It's at 12% gradient at the moment, and that would be fine, but they've already gone over 25% in some parts of this climb here right now. He's got the pedaling action going again, hasn't he, Bob? He's got himself back up to that high cadence, which seems to have been something they've trained an awful lot at. There's Christian van der Velde going through there.
There's the trouble with the cars. This is the big worry now is the cars blocking the road, because the rain is causing the cars to lose all traction and they can't get going again, and that's quite a serious problem for anybody behind these front 4 or 5 riders.
You see how he goes around the outside of the curve right now, just changing gear down a little bit. These corners are around about 15%. They are absolutely horrendous. Heras, though, is doing a superb job right now. As soon as he gets onto a straight level part of the course, he gets himself back into that rhythm, tries to get his cadence up again. He's opened up 1 minute and 15 seconds over Joseba Beloki, but more importantly is the time gap he seems to be opening up over Aitor González. Beloki is doing a great job here, but look at the face on him right now. He's just trying to ride himself and keep himself near the top of the Vuelta a España.
Desperation on the face of Beloki there. And Heras, every single one of these riders going through abject agony on this climb. Nobody's having an easy day. Not the first rider and not the last rider. Everyone going through a purgatory to the top of the Angliru.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bob, one feels as though there is life on the moon, because that's where I think we've just arrived here. This barren summit of the Angliru. The clouds are down, the rain is pouring down, there's a massive crowd here, and it's been a wonderful ascent by the riders, and this is where it's all counted today. This will be Mayo again, a little bit further down the slopes for him. It's Heras, Beloki, Casagrande, Mayo on the climb. Aitor González as well. But I think, Heras has done enough now to become the leader of the Tour.
We're going to be close. We have to see where Iban Mayo is on the road, and you're absolutely right. Every rider in this race has made for a real spectacle of racing. They haven't held back 1 meter today, not even with when you consider the difficulty of the final ascent. It's been a very aggressive race, and it's given Roberto Heras a real springboard, a slingshot. Look at that to González. 147, that is the race lead right there.
That's enough to do it. Now all he's got to do is just keep the pressure on. He's in goal tonight. And Roberto Heras, the winner in 2000, who was the leader when he came up this mountain in that year, is now going to reclaim that golden jersey.
It's not enough right now, though, and he's got to think about the other mountaintop finish before we finish this bike race in Madrid, because Aitor González has proved that he is a superb time trialist. Roberto Heras right now will take cheer from seeing that sign across the road, which indicates he's just got 1 kilometre to go. The road actually levels out at around about 500 metres to go, so there's probably 500 metres left of really difficult climbing for this man to do, and he could find himself opening up that gap a little bit more on Aitor González, who has really cracked over the last couple of kilometres. But the man, and it was amazing how we noticed that at the bottom of the climb, Bob, that the man who led the bike race, Óscar Sevilla, did not look good in the early kilometres.
He didn't look strong. He was bent over his bars. He had a little bit of laboring coming into the pedals before we got onto the steep slopes of this climb, and now those are all coming back into his legs now, and he's feeling the full weight of all the pressure the whole season, and having the golden jersey for most of this race, and now he's cracked wide open. Roberto Heras, so astute, so tactically perfect, that he's gauged his effort not just today but throughout the whole Vuelta a España to perfect effect. You got to hand it to Johan Brunel. He's never spent any of his ammunition until it was absolutely necessary.
And what a marvellous sporting crowd it is on this dismal day high in the mountains of Spain, because they haven't listened to the organisation. They haven't attempted to push these riders at all, as we now see them continuing to battle away. He's about 500 metres from the summit now. That was the Prem at the top of the mountain, so he'll get the honour of taking the climb of the Angliru. Now he's just got a little false flat and then a sprint up to the line. Then the watches will start.
Well, also, Phil, hats off to the technicians for bringing us these pictures, because the conditions out there are absolutely disgusting. It really has been a tough thing to be out there and bring the pictures. I thought we might lose them, but it's been a great stage to witness here right now. Roberto Heras of US Postal Service out on the attack. He waited till the very steep part of the climb with about 6 kilometres to go, and then he put the hammer down and blew everybody away. He needs to be careful right now. There's just a slight descent, and keep it on the road if you would, Roberto. We don't want you going off right now, because you've got to try and build as much time over the other riders in this bike race as possible. The last time check we had to the man who was in second place overall at the start of the day was 1:47, but it would all go down to what those times are on the line.
So the police are guiding home a magnificent man on this day in Spain. Roberto Heras attacked and followed the wheel of González, blew him away, and now is building what he hopes will be a time that will give him a golden jersey. Remember, he won stage 6 on La Padera. Now he has won stage 15 on the Angliru, and the clock has started. Now we must wait to see if indeed US Postal have got themselves the leader of yet another Grand Tour this year. This is Joseba Beloki racing up in second place.
Second place on the road, 5th at the start of the day, but looking to climb up into a podium position right now. He's 26 seconds was since Roberto Heras came across the line. The most important time, though, Phil, is the time of the man who started the day ahead of Roberto Heras, Aitor González, and that will be the time that we'll be most interested in the moment. Although Roberto Heras does need to open as much time as he can on everyone else in the bike race behind him, because he is not the greatest of time trialists in the world. He needs to have a good buffer going to Madrid, but he's still got some tough mountain stages to go to increase his lead.
Well, you were right about one thing, Bob. Heras won. Now is he going to get the lead?
I didn't think he would. I thought that Aitor González looked so good on the early slopes of the climb that he would be able to limit his damages and keep the jersey for Kelme. I think that actually would have been a good move for US Postal to do, because now if Heras does get the jersey, it'll be tough to keep it in the next few days. And I guarantee you Kelme will not lay down arms, and they will attack all the way to Madrid.
Well, there's no doubt he will get the jersey now, because the clock has almost ticked away here. The time before Beloki has arrived in second place. But Joseba Beloki, who over those last 3 kilometres continued to lose ground to Heras. There was a moment at around 3.5 kilometres it looked as though he was going to bring him back, but no, he crosses the line about 1:36 behind. Now 1:42 is almost gone. It's gone, and Francesco Casagrande has come in as well.
The jersey seems to be going over now. Here comes Iban Mayo, and I think that right now the Heras has enough time to get the gold jersey.
Well, it's all over. He's got the golden jersey now as Mayo comes in at 1:54. It should be Aitor González who will come around that corner in 5th place. But the peloton is going to be spread over an awful long way. Here they come. It's a bit of a sprint. González leading them in.
De Luca there and Simone from
I don't know where De Luca came from. That was a bit of a superb performance by him with Simone. But look at that, 2 minutes 15 approximately.
Well, 2 minutes 15 is plenty of time, and that looks like Angel Casera, who's just come in as well, so a superb ride by him. But there are big time gaps in the whole of this bike race this afternoon, Phil, but there is one thing which is certain: in the rain and mist at the top of Angliru, the man who has taken over the lead is Roberto Heras.
And we are still waiting to see now the arrival. That's Garcia Casas coming in. Waiting to see now the arrival of the yellow jersey, and here he is at around about 2 minutes and 50 seconds for Óscar Sevilla. He has lost his lead, and so too has his teammate, because González has not found the second he wanted. Instead, Roberto Heras of US Postal has become the new leader of the Vuelta España. But I don't think this race somehow is over yet, and I don't think Heras would argue with me on that one. We'll take a break, and Cubs will be coming in for an awful long time this afternoon in these horrible conditions. But let's have a look at the result. A win for Roberto Heras in just over 5 hours. A minute 35 later, Joseba Beloki. Then came Francesco Casagrande, Iban Mayo, Aitor González, who started the moves on the climb, coming home. Last year's defending champion Angel Casero coming home. Good ride for him, just over 2 minutes and 20 seconds behind.
It's a double-pronged victory for Roberto Heras today, because not only is he the winner of stage 15, he is the new leader of the Vuelta a España. And I think the most important thing that he needs to remember right now is he's got a couple of reasonably flat stages, Phil, on Tuesday and Wednesday, but Thursday and Friday are 2 very tough mountain stages again, and he needs to attack again and increase his time advantage over the men in 2nd and 3rd place behind him.
So having a look now at the overall situation in the race, there's a new leader tonight. Heras leading the race now by 35 seconds over González. Óscar Sevilla didn't drop that far away. He's only 68 seconds behind in 3rd. Beloki is up to 4th. Mayo is down to 5th. Casagrande has come up as well. And looking further back, Simone is golden jersey, switches shoulders yet again. This time it might have a permanent home, but there's no way we can say that at this stage of the Vuelta on the eve of the second day of rest for the riders, because the rest of this week, taking us all of the way to Madrid, is a tough one for Roberto Heras. He won't have enough time advantage yet with that last day time trial, but he does have one more absolute cracker of a climb to come in midweek.